All right. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Air Force Historically Black Colleges and Universities, HBCU, and Minority Serving Institutions Outreach Initiative Ask Me Anything event. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Welcome. If you're here, go ahead and put where you're from or what organization or university you represent in the chat just so that we can know who all is here. So, welcome, 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 everyone. My name is Anissa Lumpkin, and I'm actually the founder of the Air Force HBCU MSI Outreach Initiative. A proud graduate of a historically Black college and university, Tennessee State University, but have a special connection to all of the universities and the desire and willingness and vision to increase research capacities at HBCUs and minority serving institutions as well. I have been with the Air Force for the entirety of my career, having served on active duty, also as a reservist. I have worked as a defense contractor in that area, and now serving as a civilian for the United States Air Force in the Air Force Research Laboratory. In previous positions, I have worked as a legislative liaison, and then prior to the position that I'm in now as our mission area lead in air medical area, I've served in the small business office as the Air Force Research Laboratory Small Business Innovation Research, Small Business Technology Transfer Program. And there is where we saw a real need to serve some of our underserved communities and universities, whether it's HBCUs, minority serving institutions, or Appalachian academia areas, in all of those areas to increase the representation of those academic institutions into the Small Business Innovation Research Program and Small Business Technology Transfer Program. So I'm so glad that you're here. Thank you, thank you, thank you for joining us. We have an extra special guest with Dr. Kathleen Gilpin here today with Apex on one of our partnership intermediary agreements. And you're going to hear a lot of wealth of information today for you. This meeting is being recorded. I just wanted to highlight a few housekeeping notes for you. So use the Q&A box to submit your questions for our speakers today. Due to the time, your question may not necessarily be answered live, but we will follow up if we need to after the event. Any materials that are included, presentations, if allowed, or fact sheets for at today's presentation will be sent to you at prior to the presentation. And so feel free to connect with us at our Air Force HBCU MI Outreach Initiative email at afrl.hbcu.msi at us.af.mil. And we'll put all of the links that you may hear from us today into the chat. And so make sure you do that. So next slide, please. So one event so there's a question in the chat about will there be a recording available. We will make sure that this recording is available, especially for those, if you see a wealth of information here, we'll be able to share that information to you once we get everything cleared through our public affairs office for the Air Force. One highlighted event I want to bring to you today is please save the date for HBCU Digital Literacy Summit, September 19th through the 20th. And then following right then the next day is our fourth annual Air Force HBCU MSI Outreach Initiative Collider on September 21st. That will be a hybrid event, so it'll be both virtual, possibly in person, presented by the Department of the Air Force, brought to you by the Air Force, our Space Force, Air Force Institute of Technology, Air Force Research Laboratory, and in partnership with Florida A&M University. So really excited for that event. You will see a wealth of speakers in partnership with the Air Force and the Air Force HBCU for our Digital Literacy Summit and our Air Force Outreach Initiative. Some of the topics will include small businesses, partnering successfully with the Air Force Cyber Sitter program. If you're interested in working with HBCUs, you're a small business, or a spin out company started after graduating from an HBCU. Small businesses will share their experiences, how to get information to do this yourself. Also, researchers at HBCUs will discuss their innovation centers, their entrepreneur centers, their procurement technical assistance centers. research programs, and anything that is already in place to help build your institution, and hopefully in turn going on to higher research levels, whether it's research classification levels for that. So we're ready for the future and ready to innovate together in partnership with you. Next slide. So that's me and all of the different areas, but really the big highlight of this slide is to show you where how to contact us and the Air Force Cyber Center website to get all of the information that you need in regards to the program. Next slide. Our goals are to increase HBCU participation in our Air Force Research Funding Program, increase those research opportunities, and ensure that you understand what are our Air Force competency areas and how to increase that success that you have to increase your broader research area. So if that's increasing you from a research level 2 to an R1 in those Carnegie Mellon classification levels, increase awareness of our Air Force STTR program, and educate you on those processes and policies and procedures, reduce any barriers that you've seen, and increase HBCU participation in our STTR program. Next slide. This is a high visibility project and initiative. It's held in conjunction with various partners that we've been able to establish from the BDPA annual conference in 2020, 2021, and 22, partnering with BDPA and Apex, who you'll hear from today, from Dr. Gilpin, to engage and educate our target audience about STTR, utilize and ensuring you're getting those funding impacts right, from sophisticated data analysis and optimizing in that program execution. And then finally, in 2023, we're partnering with the Air Force Institute of Technology with their Digital Literacy Summit. So with that, I will love to turn it over to Dr. Kathleen Gilpin, who is with Apex. She has been an instrumental part of this program since the very beginning in ensuring that our Air Force, in partnerships with Air Force and also our universities, academia, and small businesses, understand the different ins and outs of the SCTR process, because it can be definitely be a learning curve. And so with that, I would love to turn it over to Dr. Kathleen Gilpin, and so glad to have you here today.
Thank you so much for pulling up my slides, and we will get started. So next slide, please. And then we can go into the next one. I'm going to start about giving a CyberSitter primer, just a real brief overview of what the CyberSitter program is and how it's helped a lot of people in your shoes in the past. It's started in 1990, so it is a few decades old, but it's been really quite successful in the past, in the intervening years. And it's helped fund some companies, that are right now everyday names, like 23andMe and Symantec, iRobot, all of these names that we use, maybe not on a daily basis, but certainly frequently in our vocabulary, all started through their CyberSitter funding. It is called America's Seed Fund, and it's the goal from the SBA is to help grow small businesses and give them some initial, seed money, some starting money to help develop their technology. Next slide, please. So there are many different organizations that participate in the SBIR program. SBIR is for companies. STTR requires the use of a university, and we'll get into those details in subsequent slides. But for right now, the agencies that participate in the SBIR are any agency with over 100 million in extramural research budget. This is required by law. And you'll see on the left-hand side of the screen, there are many different organizations. Perhaps you've already encountered some, especially if you're in the academic world. You've probably encountered NSF, probably encountered NIH, but the Department of Energy, USDA, Department of Education, all of these organizations participate in the SBIR program. We're going to talk a lot about the Department of Defense, and even more specifically than that, the U.S. Air Force, which is the largest of the CyberSitter programs amongst the Department of Defense services. And I am going to talk a little bit about how the Air Force is really leading the way when it comes to changing the game of CyberSitter. Next slide, please. So who participates in STTR? Well, agencies with over 1 billion in extramural research participate in STTR. So there are fewer agencies that participate in STTR, but this money is just as valuable when it comes to seed money as the SBIR money. And again, the Department of Defense participates, and the U.S. Air Force is the largest program. And then down in the right-hand side of the screen, you'll see the circle of very small icons. That's what we collectively refer to as the fourth estate. And so under the Department of Defense, you have the Air Force, Navy, Army. Those are the largest services that participate, but I should say the largest agencies that participate. But there are a total of about 48 agencies, all under the Department of Defense, that participate. And so one of the things I'd like to highlight is if you are, after this webinar, you're really interested in the Air Force program, that's fantastic. That's great. The Air Force has a really great program that you should be interested in. But there is a good chance that your technology or your idea could be applicable to other services or some of the other agencies that all participate in the STTR program. So don't narrow your sights in just on one agency. Definitely keep a broad overview of where you think your technology could fit. Next slide, please. Okay, so I promised you earlier we would talk a little bit about the difference between STTR and SBIR, and this is that slide. So I mentioned SBIR only requires a company or small business concern, SBC. Sometimes you'll see a small business or a company abbreviated that way, and I think you'll see it in some slides, some of my slides. So SBC is small business concern, and that's the Small Business Administration terminology for a company. And then an STTR requires a university partner. So this is why this is really good news for the HBCU audience we have on the call right now, because obviously you're tied to a university, and 30% of the post-profit award must go by law to the university. So if you have a spin-out company from your university, or you're just partnering with another university that's interested in the research you do, and they're able perhaps to commercialize your technology, then you could enter into agreements with that company, and you would have a minimum of 30% of the award that would go to you. And this can be a really great opportunity for postdocs or graduate students who perhaps know that they are not interested in a tenure track position long-term, but they are interested in entrepreneurship, or they have an idea and they've perhaps patented technology or a new way of doing things. They could potentially make money off of that invention or the patent through the SBIR program and STTR program, in addition to the patent itself. So it's definitely something to keep in mind, whether you're a PI or a grad student or a postdoc. And one thing I do want to specifically call out is that there is a better chance for selection through the STTR. And here I'm speaking really only from what we've seen from data that AFWERX has published, but I think it's probably true for other agencies as well. And there are fewer people who apply for STTR, and so but the Air Force really wants university participation, because they understand that the good ideas for the future are coming right now from the basic research that a university is doing. So just something to keep in your back pocket for the upcoming rounds of STTR application, which there's a slide in that too, in upcoming. So next slide, please. Okay, I did want to I know that the audience is mostly academics. I did want to briefly mention some eligibility rules for an the SBC, again, small business concern, in case you have a spin-out company or you're interested in spinning out a company from your university. You must have fewer than 500 employees in entirety. You must be US based, and you have to have, it must be for profit at the time of the award. So you can be in the process of setting up your LLC, but it must be complete at the time of the award. You must have over 50% owned by US citizens, or 50% owned by another for-profit company that is at least 50% owned. So some of these, you'll see when you start reading these rules, some of them can be a little bit tricky, a little bit difficult to understand, but if you read them word for word, they usually will make sense. And then venture capital venture capital ownership is allowed, but there are certain limits to that. And you must have an innovative technology to be awarded an SBI or STTR. And one of the things we often see, one of the most frequently asked questions of Apex is, should I go the SBIR route or should I go the venture capital route? And ultimately, that's a decision that you yourself must make. But one of the huge advantages of the SBI or STTR program is that it's non-dilutive capital. So when you're comparing that to venture capital, oftentimes a company or a university PI will want to start with the SBIR program because it's non-dilutive, and that obviously can be a huge advantage. I see a question in the chat. Do you anticipate the Air Force HBCU UARC will be spinning out as SBIR? I think that would be fantastic if that is possible. I don't really have any predictions myself on that. My best guess is that the Air Force would love to see spinouts from that UARC. The UARC has gotten a lot of great press, of course, and has some really heavy-hitting HBCUs in that UARC. So I think it would be absolutely fantastic if we could get a number of spinouts from that UARC. But perhaps Anissa has a little bit better answer to that. I'm not sure if she has a little bit more, Air Force insider knowledge than I do.
Yeah, I would say that's a question. That's a great question, great idea. One of the things with the Air Force is our ability to now do more open topics and specific topics, in specific areas, whether it be our UARC, the area, research area, technology capability area is autonomy. And so we may have a few specific topics in the autonomy area. Also, with the SBIR and SITR program, there are open topics. So if you have a particular area that you think the Air Force would have an interest in your area, and you are in the UARC, or perhaps you are a partner with someone in the UARC, or you have some areas in autonomy and just relevant to autonomy that you'd be interested in, you can also go ahead and submit your STTR proposal into the open topic area. So there's different areas, but I will take this question and follow up with the HBCU UARC program manager, Mr. Tim Williams, and just kind of see what that is. And so I'll follow up with the group on that. Thanks, great question.
Thank you so much, Anissa. Next slide, please. All right, so now we're going to talk about, actually that turned out to be a perfect segue. So next slide, please. Anissa mentioned all of the great opportunities we have in the Air Force. So next slide, please. Already talked a little bit about that. Okay, so what makes the Air Force so special when it comes to the SBI or STTR program? They are making, and it is because of their open topics, and with their open topics, they're making it much more venture capital-like, meaning that they're giving out, many more awards, so smaller and more numerous awards, but they also are doing it much faster contracting, and they are offering an opportunity for you to say, this is a solution I have for a problem that the Air Force has. So it's sort of flipped the traditional script on its head. Instead of saying we need X, Y, and Z, the Air Force has instead, through their open topic, said, well, what idea do you have that we could use? And so it's really opened up the aperture for new and innovative technologies to get into the Air Force ecosystem. They do, of course, do the specific topics as well, but the Open Topic is a really great program that I think a lot of people should consider taking advantage of, because they're really leading the way when it comes to the open topics. Other services now are also offering some open topics, but they are not nearly as frequent as the Air Force. And the Air Force has been doing it for a few years now. So they're definitely the most well-versed in the open topics. And they've had a lot of success from this program. Next slide, please. So there are a lot of opportunities within the Department of the Air Force, DAF. So the Department of Air Force refers to the Air Force and the Space Force. But I wanted to highlight just the typical way that the open topics and the specific topics are run. You will see in red that you should always refer to the solicitation, because things will frequently change from solicitation to solicitation. But if we're painting with a broad brush, this is typically what you'll see for an open topic. It's usually a 25 slide deck requirement for the phase one. The phase two is usually a 15-page white paper. And the $75,000 award for phase one, 1.25 million for phase two. And so this is a really great opportunity for an academic who wants to get their technology maybe from basic research into the more of an applied research realm. Then for specific topics, usually it's a 10 to 25 page white paper, and phase one is in the ballpark of $150,000 to $250,000, while phase two is again $1 to $1.5 million. So great opportunity of to get non-dilutive capital for your research projects. Next slide, please. Oh, okay. Could you build this out 2 more times, please? So this is the first dark blue line is what I already mentioned. I do want to mention also the selection criteria. There are 3 criteria by which you're graded when you write a proposal. And I'd like to specifically mention this to academics because it is different from what NSF would grade you on or what NIH is grading you on. But you must solve a Department of the Air Force problem, and that's incumbent on you to identify the problem. But Apex can help you with that, and also there are some TPOCs you can reach out to, AFRL technical directorates, some Air Force PEOs. There are lots of different opportunities for you to identify the problem, but that's a must. You must have your technology must be solving a Department of the Air Force problem. And then also technical merit, right? That's very similar to any other proposal you would write, and your commercialization potential. So you must clearly articulate your ability to commercialize if you've not already commercialized, or if you have commercialized, the extent with, by which you have commercialized in the past, because that will lend credibility to your proposal. Next slide, please. Okay, so it is a phased program. I've already mentioned phase one, phase two, but I'd like to really make sure we know that phase one in the Air Force program is proving feasibility. And so for the open topic, this means that you have found a customer that is willing to sign a customer memorandum. So there's a lot of customer discovery, very similar to I-Corps, if you've ever been through that program. And if you are awarded a phase one award, your job then for the next 3 months is to find a customer in the Air Force. And it can be a little daunting because we know you can't just pick up the phone and call the Air Force, but there are ways to be successful in that. And Apex can help you with that, but also, Google can help you with that. Air Force magazines can help you with that. There's lots of different opportunities for you to find an appropriate customer. Phase two is for demonstrating or building a prototype. And so this is why the phase two awards are for longer periods of time and also for more money. But you do have to have a deliverable at the end, because the Air Force awards contracts, not grants. Again, that's very different from, I think, probably what most academics are used to. So you do have to have a deliverable at the end, and you get paid based on meeting certain wickets that you've proposed in your phase 2 proposal. So just keep that in mind. It is different from probably what you're used to. The Air Force offers a phase 2 plus program. This is, what we commonly refer to as enhancements, for that one more thing that entrepreneurs always know. There's always one more thing that you must do to make the prototype work, or to be able to have a minimally viable product. So this is what that money is for. It's a great opportunity. This is upwards of $14-15 million. So it can be quite, it can really help you finish that one last thing. But obviously, since it is such a large award, these are very, very selective. You must have a phase 2 award in order to be even eligible for these awards. But it is a great opportunity to know about, and that it exists, if you're able to apply for it when that time comes. Phase 3, this is the goal of most entrepreneurs. This is when you are licensing or selling your technology to the Air Force. And these often come with long-term contracts, but this by definition is not SBIR money, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about it. Just wanted to let you know that this is the goal of the SBIR program, is to be able to work your way from phase 1 and continue developing your technology and your basic research, to eventually be able to commercialize and license it to the Air Force. Next slide, please. Oh, I see a question. Can you talk about direct to phase 2? Yes, absolutely. So there are 2 ways to achieve a phase 2 award. One is through the phase 1. You've won the phase 1. You do your 3 months of proving feasibility, and then you will be invited to apply for a phase 2, and hopefully you win the phase 2 and you work your way towards phase 3. That's probably the most common way, and what I would refer to as the standard way through the SBIR program. There is a non-standard way, although many people do it, so please take non-standard with a grain of salt. Would be to apply just for a direct to phase 2. So if you can prove that you have already done feasibility studies, not using SBIR money, that is a requirement for a direct to phase 2. If you can do that, you've already tested your technology. To give you an example, let's say you're in the engineering department at your school and you have an applied research project. You've already spent a year doing the more basic research where you're proving feasibility. You've done a lot of tests on it. You've done a lot of experiments on it. You know that everything is within parameters and everything should be working, but you need still to develop it a little bit, and you have to increase the technology readiness level. That would be a perfect case example for a direct to phase 2, because you're going to need to clearly articulate in your direct to phase 2 application how you have already proven feasibility. You've already done those experiments, some other means besides SBIR, and you're at the juncture right now where you're ready to use this direct to phase 2 money to continue developing continue developing your technology so that you can build a prototype or demonstrate it some other way, however it needs to be demonstrated. That is what the direct to phase 2 is for. So it allows you to skip the phase 1 process and just jump right to the direct to phase 2. Do you need an Air Force customer letter of support? Yes, you do. You do need a customer memorandum for the direct to phase 2. Yes. These are great questions. So I will keep answering them as I see them. So feel free to continue asking them. So this slide is talking about the most common technology areas of interest for the Department of the Air Force. But I do want to specifically mention the open topic, like Anissa was saying, because that really opens up the aperture and reduces barriers to entry to get into the Department of Air Force technology ecosystem. So if you have a good idea and you can solve a problem for the Air Force, I would suggest you look at the operational imperatives that are posted by the Secretary of the Air Force. They came out about a year and a half ago. And if you have a technology that could fit in one of those operational imperatives, I would highly encourage you to consider applying for the open topic, because the Air Force will take a look at anything you suggest to them, as long as it's a good idea and it solves a problem that they have. So, but this slide definitely covers a lot of the most frequently awarded um, areas of interest for the Air Force. Next slide, please. Okay, if you could perhaps build this out a little bit, there are probably at least 5 builds to this slide. But the Air Force has done a great job of publishing when they will release various solicitations. Now, this schedule is not set in stone. The Air Force definitely reserves the right to change it. But one of the things they've done in subsequent years is really tried their best to give you a heads up, because they know that, especially for academics, you guys are pulled in 1,000 different directions. You're serving on multiple committees. For those who don't have tenure yet, it's a scramble to try to do as much as you can to get tenure. For those who do have tenure, you're still teaching, you're still dealing with grad students and postdocs. You have 1,000 things on your plate that you're trying to juggle at all times. And the Air Force recognizes that, and they would like to make it as easy as possible for you to be able to plan when you're going to be able to apply for the various solicitations that the Air Force offers. So this is a schedule that you can refer to, but they also have it posted on their website, and which you can check on navworks.com. That's where you'll find the most up-to-date version of this schedule. But right now, we just recently closed the direct to phase 2 open topic, but there is a phase 1 open topic scheduled for late this summer in August. Is when it's scheduled to be pre-released, and then we think it's going to be open sometime in September, early September, and then it'll close in the middle of October. So this is a great time. You have the summer months to start preparing for it, because obviously the more you can get done initially, the better off you'll be. Nobody likes to do the last minute proposal scramble, although I understand I'm preaching to the choir here, and that's probably what we know. We've all had to do it sometime in our career, but if we can be a little more proactive and get more done early on, that's obviously saves us a lot of heartache and headache towards the end. So keep that in mind. Keep your eyes peeled for the open topic that is scheduled to come out in August. Next slide, please. There should be a few more builds here. Yeah. The DoD BAA is just to let you know when the Department of Defense broad agency announcement comes out, and the Air Force usually is not tied to those dates. So they refer to them as out of cycle solicitations. Just more information for you to know so that you're as knowledgeable as possible about the Air Force program. So what can you do now to prepare? I know. Next slide, please. I already mentioned that getting some work done now will give you a leg up when it comes to submitting the proposals. And so one of the most important things you can do right now is to identify potential DAF customers. This is definitely the long pole in the tent. It can be difficult to get a hold of somebody in the Air Force. Like I mentioned, you can't pick up the phone and call the Air Force. Sometimes if you're able to find an email address on the website, it'll be sort of a generic email distro list. And it can be difficult getting anybody to respond to you. But one thing that you can do, next slide, please, is use this as a general idea of how to get started. So this starts from the bottom and works its way up. Getting a large organization like a wing, 711th Human Performance Wing or Department of Air Force Civil Engineering Center, that is good. You can at least say, well, my technology would be a great fit for the 711th Human Performance Wing. Okay, that's a really great start. But even better than that would be, okay, my technology would be fit into a sub-organization within the wing. Or you can get a colonel to respond to you, or a lieutenant colonel, or a senior enlisted would be great too, you know, as the end user for your equipment, for your technology. And you can keep working up. Obviously, if you can get somebody who's willing to sign the customer memorandum for you, that is an ideal situation. That's I don't want to say you've hit the jackpot, because it's not that rare for you to be able to get the customer memorandum, but it definitely is hitting a jackpot in the sense that you have accomplished your goal, and you've done what you set out to do. Um, but even if you don't have quite the, you know, the signed customer memorandum for the phase one, that's okay. You can at least say, I've talked with, you know, major so and so in this organization, and they've given me great feedback on my technology. They say they would like to see it continue to be funded. That kind of thing all sets you up for success with your phase one, and then ultimately your phase two proposal. Next slide, please. Okay, I think if you build this out at least 5 times, that would be good. So one of the best things you can do is go to airforcetechconnect.org. This is a fantastic resource set up by the Air Force just for you to be able to briefly describe your technology and have somebody in the Air Force triage your technology to the right point of contact within the Air Force. This is such a game changer for the academics and the company entrepreneurs who are trying to get their foot into the Air Force ecosystem. So highly, highly, highly encourage you to take a look at that website, submit your idea, and the entrepreneurs have had great success getting the point of contact within the Air Force to email them back. And even if they're not quite the right point of contact, they can forward you down the line to get to the right point of contact. So highly, highly encourage you to take a look at Air Force Tech Connect. Also, you know, you can look at Air Force almanacs, Air Force magazines. Sometimes trade journals will list a point of contact. You know, they'll interview people within the Air Force, and you can get a contact. Even if they don't have a specific person, they'll mention a name of an organization. You can get started that way. Google is a very viable way to do that, right? You can look on LinkedIn to look at organizations you're interested in, and get started that way, right? Anything to get started. Ultimately, this is going to be a game of having 100 contacts, you know, or 100 people you want to contact, and then having 1 or 2 people contact you back, right? You should not be disillusioned that you will get 100 emails from Air Force personnel, but everybody has to start somewhere, and having that list by starting with these places, I think are a really good spot for you to attend, or for you to start with. I do want to specifically call out the AFWERX events. AFWERX does a great job hosting events all around the country. They do many events virtually. They do many events combined, virtual and in person. So they do a great job keeping their website up to date for all the different events they're going to be at. I cannot say enough positive things about AFWERX and their events. So definitely make sure you check that out. And if you're able to go to one of their events, if they happen to be nearby, or if they're doing it virtually and you can log in, that is a fantastic way for you to meet people, get some contacts, start building your network, because that's what's going to allow you to be successful when it comes to getting the customer memorandum for the phase two, for the phase two proposal. Next slide, please. Okay, this is fairly obvious information, but the more information you can gather for your story, the better it is right now, right? I am sure as academics, you actually probably have a lot of it already gathered. You have your past few years worth of data and research at your fingertips. I guarantee you have that ready to go. One of the things I would suggest is perhaps taking it out of the language you're used to writing for NIH or NSF. Those proposals must be very, very data driven and are heavy on the technical jargon and the technical lingo. for the Air Force proposal, you certainly need to include that because you need to be able to successfully convey that you're capable of doing what you've proposed or what you are proposing. But you also must include information for a non-technical reviewer, because there is a potential that you would have a non-technical reviewer. So you must have somebody, you must include in your proposal the information that conveys to the technical reviewer that you're capable of doing what you've proposed, but you also must include some information that's impactful for a non-technical reviewer to be able to say, yes, these people are capable of doing what they say. And this is a technology we really need within the Air Force. It all must come down to you, those three things I mentioned earlier, right? Your ability to say that you're solving an Air Force problem, your commercialization potential, and then your technical merit. So those three things you must convey above all else. And gathering this information for your story to be able to do that now will help you in the long run. Will pay dividends in the end. Next slide, please. Okay, so specifically for STTRs, right? I am assuming the majority of this audience are people attached to an STTR or to a university, excuse me. And so it's beneficial for you to start working the paperwork for your university if your university does not already have a standard template. Some universities do. So the person who would know that information would be the provost or the vice president of research or the tech transfer office. These are the people who work with this type of paperwork on a weekly or monthly basis. So they would be the best people to ask if you have templates already in place. But if you don't, now is the time to start getting those templates in place, because when the solicitations are released, it can be quite a quick turnaround that's required of you. It can be a tight timeline to get these forms through the red tape that a university frequently has. So if you can have the teaming agreement and the allocation of rights, at least the template set up and in place, already approved through the highest levels of leadership at the university, that's only going to save you time in the long run and will hopefully make the proposal go much smoother. And you won't be anxiously, tapping your foot at the very last minute, waiting for that last signature that you need from the university official to get in place. So definitely encourage you to start working this process now if you can. Next slide, please. Okay, so the direct to phase 2, what can you do now to prepare? Next slide, please. We already touched a little bit on this, but the customer memorandum is key to being able to do the direct to phase 2. Yeah, I would say there's probably 5 builds on this too. I'm sorry. Okay, I guess that's it, 3. Yeah. So it is required. You cannot do it if you do not have it. So unfortunately, we have seen in the past some entrepreneurs, either from a university or a small business, intend to propose a direct to phase 2, and they are waiting until the very last minute. Let me rephrase. They probably are not waiting to the last minute. They've been reaching out. They've been trying to get the customer memorandum, but the Air Force can be a slow moving organization like any other government organization, especially if the organization has decided to have it reviewed by JAG or have it reviewed by public affairs. That just adds in more layers to an already complex situation. So now is the time to start looking for a customer memorandum if you intend to propose to a direct to phase 2. It doesn't matter if the direct to phase 2 is a year out, that you're intending to propose to. Now is the time to start looking for a customer memorandum. Whenever you intend to propose for the direct to phase 2, now is the time to start looking for the customer memorandum. I cannot emphasize that enough. And oftentimes it is a trust relationship, so it takes a few months to build. So start working that process now. Next slide, please. Oh, yes. Okay. So the difference between the customer and the end user, I do want to just briefly touch on that. Thank you for going back. There are 2 signatures on the customer memorandum that are required, and they're required to be different personnel. So the customer usually is a little bit higher ranking than the end user, but it doesn't have to be. Usually the end user is the the sergeant or the technical sergeant or the sergeant first class who is actually going to be hands-on with the device or the widget that you're developing, or dealing with the software that you're developing, right? And then the customer is usually major or lieutenant colonel. You know, if you can get a general, that would be fantastic. But those types of levels are typically able to say, yes, this is a technology we need. We would like to see it continue to be funded by the Air Force, even if they themselves don't have funding. By signing the customer memorandum, they are in no way saying they are agreeing to fund the project. They're simply saying, we would like to see this continue to be funded, you know, through the SBIR program. So I wanted to clearly delineate the difference, because that's another frequently asked question we get at Apex. Next slide, please. Okay, so we've already talked a little bit about that. We definitely, the take-home message is here. You don't have to start writing the proposal yet, but just start getting the information so that when it comes time to writing the proposal, you are ready to go. Next slide, please. Okay, so we have not talked about the getting the registrations done and things like that. This is more for the company side. So if you intend to participate in the SBIR program, just as a university partner, you don't have to have a SAM registration, CAGE code, UEI, or DSIP registration. I probably would recommend the DSIP registration just so you can see what's going on with the company that would be submitting. But these are all required by the company that you would be partnering with. If you intend to spin out a company from the university, then you do need these registrations and these codes. So get the registrations done now. Some of them do take time. Most of them are a relatively quick turnaround. They don't take a ton of information to do. So if you intend to spin out a company now or really at any time in the future, you can get these registrations done now. So I'd also like to give a plug to Apex Accelerators, notably different from Apex PIA. So I'm talking to you from the Apex PIA point of view, partnership intermediary agreement, and we have some slides coming up that talk about that. But the Apex Accelerators are fantastic resources for you. Really, just I think sometimes an unfathomable amount of resources and wealth of knowledge reside within the Apex Accelerators. So reach out to your local one. They're at the state level. For the state of just look up Apex Accelerators. It will come up with a list of states that offer them, and you should definitely be reaching out to them. They offer free services, free resources for companies and entrepreneurs that are seeking federal awards. So definitely reach out to that. Next slide, please. So some useful sites. We'll click through these relatively quickly, but I just did want to mention a few of them. DSIP, this is the website actually I just brought up. Defense SBIR Innovation Portal. I'd recommend you registering for this. The company must register for this because this is how you're going to submit your proposal, whether it's an SBI or STTR. But if you're a university and you'd like to see what's going on, you can register for a registration as well. So you can do that. Next slide, please. AFWERX, this is a must. You should definitely go to afworks.com or afworks.airforce.mil. They are really, really great information on here, all about what AFWERX does, about their SBIR program, and links to various things within the Air Force. So great starting point to get your foot in the door when it comes to the Air Force. Next slide, please. This is a good one to understand the Undersecretary for Defense for Research and Engineering. This is a little bit more focused towards academics and the different research areas that you might be doing within your own lab that could also find a home within the Department of Defense. Next slide, please. SBIR.gov has a ton of information for you. You could spend quite a few days going through the different videos they have. They have very specific short tutorial videos on any topic really you could want. So this is a really, really great opportunity for you. It goes over in detail the different requirements for SIBRs, to be eligible for SBIR, STTR. It also will list very past awards that they've given out, so you can see what's been awarded in the past, what kind of technologies they've awarded, they funded, and various funding opportunities as well. So definitely go to this website. Next slide, please. Okay, this is the Apex website. I, of course, would encourage you to go to the Apex website, but we're going to go into the next few slides are all about Apex, so we don't have to spend a lot of time on this slide. So next slide, please. Apex does stand for Academic Partnership Engagement Experiment. We are a PIA, Partnership Intermediary Agreement, and in our role, we try to connect the organizations on the left with the organizations on the right. So for you as an academic, we try to connect the academics to various organizations within the Air Force, whichever one is most appropriate for your technology. So this is why we love being here today, to be able to hopefully help give you a lot of information about the Air Force's SIBR-SITR program, and then maybe stay on as a resource for you in subsequent months and subsequent years as you go through the Air Force SIBR-SITR program. We are here to help you. So next slide, please. This is the Apex journey, right? It can be difficult. If you think of the far right-hand side, the government and commercial programs, that's the phase 3 that I was mentioning earlier in the phased slide. And it can be a daunting process. It's not a straight and narrow road that you can take to get there. You do have to take. There are inevitably going to be some winding roads and a lot of curves, and unfortunately, perhaps some dramatic cliff pitfalls that we want to help you avoid. And Apex can do that. We hopefully help it make it a little bit more of a smooth journey for you, and cut out a few of the long turns and winding roads that you'd ordinarily have to take otherwise. Next slide, please. So this is a metric slide of how many universities we've been able to help. We do have connections at 170 R1, R2 universities, and then 315 universities just in general, 78 MSIs, 119 non-traditional. So we do have a focus on bringing good ideas from anywhere into the innovation ecosystem. So something we'd like to highlight. And on the next slide, you'll see some HBCU specific numbers. We have been able to fund 6 proposals. I totally misspoke there. We have helped the Air Force fund 6 proposals from HBCUs. Tennessee State, Morgan State has 3 awards, and then North Carolina A&T. I did see somebody from North Carolina A&T in the chat. So we've helped 5 universities get connected to small businesses. This is one of the things we do frequently with Apex, is offer matchmaking services. Because again, I go back to the fact that academics are pulled in 1,000 different directions and trying to juggle many, many different things at once. So trying to find a small business that is compatible with the research you're doing and wants to help you commercialize it is a time-consuming process that probably you don't have time for. So we can help with that through our matchmaking program. And then overall, we've helped 4 universities with 9 proposals. So they're the same as the 6 proposals funded, but we have helped Florida A&M with some proposals as well. So next slide, please. All right, so the process navigation is really the crux of what Apex does. And in our process nav, we offer various cohorts designed to help support you at whatever stage you're in. So think back to that phased program slide I showed you: phase 1, direct to phase 2, direct to phase 2, and then phase 2 plus, and then the phase 3. We offer cohort support for those seeking phase 1 awards. That's pre-award support. This is where we help the majority of the companies and university entrepreneurs. We can do a little bit of support from contracting. We're not contracting officers, but we can help you understand what you should be getting and the types of communication you should be getting from your contracting officer. And then we also offer post-award phase one. So these are companies who have phase one awards seeking phase two. And then the same idea for companies who have won phase two seeking phase three awards. We can help you at various stages throughout the Air Force program. Next slide, please. Okay, this is the metrics slide. We're quite proud of the slide because we love helping you succeed, and ultimately our success is your success. So, we've helped 78.8 million in awards. So this is money. This is nearly $80 million going to company and university entrepreneurs to help develop their technology. So, next slide, please. All right, and then Apex does offer massive open online courses. If you think back to the MIT, the MOOCs, and their famous free open online courses, this is very similar to that. We offer various lectures, for lack of a better word, about the cyber sitter process and how to get involved with the Air Force cyber sitter process specifically. So there's a link to that right there. And I see Rachel just put it in the chat too. So next slide, please. Okay, if you have any questions, never hesitate to reach out to us. My contact information is here. I also put Chris Mather. He is an Apex senior consultant for us, but he helps us with a lot of outreach. He's actually at a conference right now doing this for us at the NSPAA conference for us for HBCUs. But also I did want to highlight, I have Dan Gisser. He's on the line too. He's on the call, and he also helps us with outreach. And all three of us are happy to answer questions at any time. So never, ever hesitate to reach out to us. But we do have some time left, I think, for a few questions right now. I've been trying to answer them as we go along, but if you have any questions based on what I've said, I know it's drinking from the fire hose. So if a question comes up later on today, or within the week or within the next few months, don't hesitate to reach out. We will help you at any time.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gilpin. And also, we put our link to our email, and you can see the email there for Apex and Parallax. But for Air Force HBCU MSI Outreach Initiative, our email is kind of, if you scroll up, it's at the top of the chat there. But thank you so much. Are there any more questions? Thank you so much for answering questions along the way, and for all of you that joined in and joined us today for that. I want to just highlight a lot of the great things that Dr. Gilpin talked about today, and that is definitely start engaging now with our Air Force at our events, to identify, various subject matter experts that may have interest in the technology capabilities that you have. So those are things that are really important to ensure your success. Engage with our Apex. I'm looking forward to engaging with Apex more and expanding our partnership areas that we've had in the past, and continuing that in the future. So looking forward to getting back with you, Dr. Gilpin, and the folks in your organization to continue that partnership. One thing that I wanted to highlight for next month, in July 21st, is we're going to have the executive director, deputy director from the Carnegie Mellon classification system. I know there's a lot of buzz and interest in, not only from the Department of Defense, to increase research levels from R2 to R1 for our HBCUs, but also, in our HBCUs and academic institutions have an increased interest in that, and it's imperative that we ensure you know all of the ins and outs on that. So please join us next month. I'm going to go quickly. We're going to put the link in the chat for that particular event that we have coming up. So July June 21st at 11 a.m. You can register on Eventbrite. We'll be hosting the American Council on Education for Carnegie Classification of Institutions of Higher Education Ask Me Anything event. Please ensure that you are available to come and join us at that event that we'll be having there. One of the things that I really want to highlight there is Carnegie is looking to change some of their different classification levels. And so you can kind of get a first hand look at some potential changes that may impact where you are in your research levels of classification. So please join us for that event. And with that, I think I stopped sharing. Perhaps not. There we go. So thank you again. Please register for our June 21st event. Also, register for the upcoming Collider events in partnership with our Air Force Institute of Technology, Air Force Digital Literacy Summit, as well as the Air Force HBCU Outreach Initiative. We are really glad to have all of these particular events. We've seen a lot of success in 2022 with engaging with universities and small businesses. Really excited about what has come out of this initiative and the focus on HBCUs and standing up the $90 million award to Howard University for the UARC and also their other universities that are funded through that program from Jackson State, Hampton University, Tuskegee University, Bowie State University, Delaware State University, Florida Memorial University, Norfolk State University, and Tougaloo University for those institutions that are affiliated with the University Affiliated Research Institution. But just note that the UARC is a consortium event, and so there's fully funded education to up to PhD levels, but it's a consortium, so that means that anyone, HBCUs and interests in that have an ability to be successful in partnership in that program. And I also just wanted to highlight some of the phase ones that were awarded in 2022 with partnership with HBCUs, an award totaling over $1 million. So congratulations to the awardees, Integrated Solutions for Systems Partnership in partnership with Clark Atlanta University, Zansers LLC in partnership with Howard University, Tangan Biomedical in partnership with Howard University, SSS Optical in partnership with Oakwood University, and then finally Admit Academy in partnership with Stillman College. So we've seen a lot of success for continued growth since 2019. And so I just want to end with a great leader's proverb that is shared from Burkina Faso. If you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. So in 2019, since together, we have continued to build success every year in this program. And I appreciate all of the partnerships and continued success that we've had in the program. And so with that, thank you. This presentation has been recorded. We will again we will again definitely share the information that was presented today with you so you can continue to reach out to your colleagues and share all of the wealth of information that we're giving you through this program. So thanks again, everyone. I hope you all have a great week and enjoy the rest of your day.